Alright, so about 2 weeks ago, this channel hit about 1,000 subscribers, and 1 week from that, I unlocked community polling, so I decided to poll you guys out a very easy first question. Very easy. And that is, what exactly is the best game in the Life is Strange series? Now, as you all know, there are 3 games in the series: Life is Strange 1, made by Don't Nod; Life is Strange 2, also made by Don't Nod; and Life is Strange Before the Storm, which is the prequel to Life is Strange 1, and that one is made by Deck 9. I have to say, I was actually pleasantly surprised how many of you actually answered. I got 282 votes out of 1,000 subscribers, so that's actually a really good sample size. And considering that everyone that's subscribed to this channel, I imagine are fans of decision-based games, because I mean that's literally all I do on this channel. I have no other content, so I imagine all of you love decision-based games, so I think this is a really good audience to poll. So I gave you guys about a week to vote, and with 282 votes total, the results were Life is Strange 1 taking 56% of the vote, Life is Strange 2 taking 38%, and Life is Strange Before the Storm taking 6%. So at least according to this audience, Life is Strange 1 is the superior game in the series, beating out 56% to Life is Strange 2's 38%. That was a total of 51 more votes for Life is Strange 1. Life is Strange Before the Storm scored a total of 17 votes with 6% of the total. So I decided I'm gonna weigh my 2 cents on which I believe is the stronger of the main entries. I'm gonna be judging both games based on their story, the powers given to Max and Daniel, the chemistry between the characters, and finally, which this one's a kind of important one, at least for this channel, which one of them is a better decision-based games, the illusion of choice. Do your choices actually matter or affect the story in any way? So let's get started. I'm gonna get this one a little bit out of the way at the beginning, and that's Life is Strange Before the Storm. Now, I had actually never played Before the Storm. I played the first game, played the second. I wasn't really interested in a prequel story when it first released, so I had not played it. I actually am playing it right now for the channel. And that's because in Life is Strange True Colors, they announced that one of the characters, Lily, is going to be a love interest for Life is Strange 3 or True Colors. So I decided, you know what better time to play it than now. And I actually don't think it's that bad of a game. I actually am quite enjoying it right now. The problem is, it kind of strays away with what makes Life is Strange great, and that is, first and foremost, the powers. The powers are the catalyst of all the problems and all the good things that happen to the characters in Life is Strange 1 and 2. Life is Strange Before the Storm obviously moves away from that, having Chloe be the main character and explaining their story with Rachel before, obviously, the events of Life is Strange 1. This is good and all, but one of the weaknesses I always find with these prequel stories is that you already know what's going to happen. You already played the first one. You already know how this is going to end. So yes, it gave a little bit more insight into Rachel and all these things, but even as a story, I found that it wasn't really up to par with their work in 1 and 2. And obviously the main reason for this is that Don't Nod was not the developer in charge of Life is Strange Before the Storm. It was Deck 9. So it was their first time doing it, and they are actually the ones that are going to be making Life is Strange 2 Colors. So this is their first attempt at a main entry in a series with original characters. So I'm interested to see how well they do, considering they did make the weakest game of the last series. But hey, let's give them a chance. Maybe they could pull it off, having to work with original characters instead of already existing ones and an already existing story. Speaking of story, let's start with that, the story. Life is Strange 1, in my opinion, has the more emotional and impactful story than Life is Strange 2. This is not to say that Life is Strange 2's story is bad. I actually consider it a very good story. The problem with Life is Strange 2 is that, and this is not their fault, but this is just the way that they decided to tell their story, since the plot of them revolves around running away from the police and trying to reach the southern border and trying to jump into Mexico, they don't stay in one place ever too long. Every episode shifts to a new set of characters and a new problem that has nothing to do with the previous one. This mechanism of storytelling just makes it that you really just don't have a lot of time to bond with characters or get to know them. One of my favorite episodes in Life is Strange 2 was episode 3, and it's simply because you actually stay with a cast of characters for a full episode. Since the characters wake up at the tent at the beginning of episode 3 until the very shocking finale, it's the first episode where the cast of characters does not change, and you actually get some bonding time with them. Now, this is not technically the writer's fault, because obviously the plot of the game is that you're supposed to make it to the border, to make it to Mexico, and you're obviously fugitives and you're being hunted from the cops, so it makes sense that you would have to jump from area to area, but I think I would have preferred that you keep episode 1 the way it is, but then at the end of episode 1, you meet Finn and Cassidy and you tag along with their group since the end of episode 1, probably until the end of episode 4. So at least you have a band of recurring characters in every episode and you actually get a chance to bond with them, and not basically be switching out characters every episode. From your grandparents to episode 2, to Sean and Cassidy in episode 3, and then to the whole church sequence in episode 4. You could probably leave episode 5 the way it is. Episode 5 is fine, because you need that final resolution, and you finally say goodbye to your group of friends, and you could probably leave the plot line of the mother, basically finding out and her jumping in, probably to help out in episode 4. But I think that if you would have stuck with that, you probably would have had a more impactful story in Life is Strange 2. This problem doesn't happen in Life is Strange 1 because, well, you're not really moving around in Life is Strange 1. It all happens in Blackwell Academy. The cast of characters stays literally the same from episode 1 to episode 5, so you get to spend so much more time with them. And this mechanism allows you to tell, well, a more cohesive story in that sense. I think this is the main thing that holds Life is Strange 2's story back a little bit in my opinion, because besides that, Life is Strange 2 delves into much more complex issues than Life is Strange 1. Life is Strange 1 is, and always is, a murder mystery, and while our main characters obviously do face immense hardships, finding Rachel and obviously Max not being able to control her time travel powers too well, Max doesn't really, I wouldn't say, she doesn't really grow that much throughout episode 1 and episode 5. She's still that same person. Yes, she gets a little more confident, she gets a little more cocky as she gets her power, but all in all, she doesn't really change that much as a character. And neither does Chloe. Maybe she gets a little bit more forgiving at the end, but she doesn't really change that much. Now, in Life is Strange 2, our character goes through immense changes and hardships. Obviously, Sean faces racism, violence throughout his journey, so it molds his character very well into something very different from what they are in episode 1. I just feel that if they would have had a better supporting cast, this game probably would have been as good, its story at least would have been as good as Life is Strange 1. Now, let's move on to the powers. Now, I am going to be the first one to admit that I am going to be a little biased here, because I love time travel shit. I just do. I admit it to you guys. I am a sucker for time travel stories. I just love it. So when Life is Strange 1 has a main character that has time travel powers versus Daniel's power of, telekinesis or force, however you want to call it, I am just going to naturally gravitate toward time travel. Now, I'm sorry, that's just the way I am. I do find Daniel's power interesting. I also find it interesting that in Life is Strange 2, the main character does not have the powers. You are actually the big brother to the person that has the powers, which I actually think this is a really unique thing. A lot of people didn't like it. A lot of people, I even thought that at some point in the story, like maybe in episode 4 or 5, Daniel will be in trouble and it would show that Sean actually has powers also, and he would save Daniel by using his powers, and both brothers would have the powers, but it never happened. And I always found it a little bit weird, but I do respect the choice. I think that, and here comes the problem with having I'm gonna say basic power like telekinesis, is that you can't really, there are not many plot points you can get out of that. Which is probably why in Life is Strange 2 they gave the powers to Daniel instead of Sean. I think the writers knew that having a main character with those powers, you weren't going to get a lot of cool plot points from that, but giving the powers to Daniel this unstable tantrum of a child, these powers, well, you can create a lot more plot points with that. And to me, it actually worked out better that way. I'm gonna be the first to admit I half expected Sean to at some point in the story get the powers also, but they actually stuck to their guns and they legit never gave Sean any powers. Daniel was the one with the powers all along, and the point of the story of Life is Strange 2 is for you to mold this child, this character of Daniel, and show him good and wrong, which obviously pays off in your choices and pays off in the ending. Now, all of these things help Life is Strange 2, but they're still not as interesting as all the unique scenarios you created because of Life is Strange 1's power. Life is Strange 1's power saves Chloe in episode 1, makes you feel helpless in episode's 2 finale to save Kate. It creates a completely alternate timeline in episode 3. It allows you to find Rachel in episode 4, just to find out that she's dead, and obviously creates this world-ending event in episode 5. Maybe that one was going a little bit far, but fine, I'll give it a little bit of credit for it. Life is Strange 2's power is just like an afterthought in the story. It's not even the catalyst of their journey. The catalyst is that this dumbass cop shot their dad, and because of that triggers Daniel, and he ends up destroying half a city block. But it wasn't even the powers that killed the dad. It was the dumbass cop. So it's not really the forefront of the story. Obviously, then Sean has to deal with it and train Daniel across the story, but there's no big ramification because of Daniel's power in Life is Strange 2's story. It's just, it's just there. He has it. He helps out sometimes, and sometimes he destroys shit. But they don't really give it that big of an importance. Now then, here's where Life is Strange 1 really falls on its face. And that is, Life is Strange 1 is not a good decision-based game. It's just not. The first question you should ask yourselves with any decision-based game is that, do your choices affect the ending? That's like the first question you should ask yourselves. And if the answer is no, then you probably don't have yourselves a very good decision-based game. It doesn't matter if you create all of these interesting choices of the alternate timelines, killing Chloe or not. If your choices really don't matter or affect the story in some way, then this is just the illusion of choice. They're just giving you choices to make it interesting for story's sake, but really you're not moving the story in any way. It doesn't matter what choices you do in Life is Strange 1. It doesn't matter even if Chloe's in love with Warren and you don't even want Chloe. Your endings are always going to be the same. It's ending A, save Arcadia Bay, or ending B, save Chloe. And that's my massive problem with Life is Strange 1. Life is Strange 2 actually has a lot more ramification and choices than Life is Strange 1. In fact, the only decisions that actually truly matter in Life is Strange 1, I would say, are saving Kate in episode 2, because that one she actually does remain dead for the rest of the series. You do actually get to see her in the alternate timeline, but obviously she's still dead in your timeline. And whether Frank dies in episode 5, whether you either have the gun or lost the gun and have the gun and you could kill him, or he could end up getting shot or stabbed, or just end that whole conflict peacefully. That's it. Those are the only choices that actually have ramifications that actually end up in something different, but nothing else really does matter. Life is Strange 2, on the other hand, does a much better job at this. For starters, in the first question, do your choices affect the ending? The answer is yes, they do. Throughout the whole game, your actions are actually influencing Daniel, whether he will be a moral Daniel or a rebel Daniel by the end of episode 5. And based on which Daniel you have an additional 2 endings based on each path. This already makes it a total of 4 endings, and not only does it have 4 endings, there are small variations to every ending based on your love interest, on who is dead or who is still alive. So basically, that sets up that every conversation or every decision with Daniel is moving that needle either to the left, to the rebel Daniel, or to the right, to that moral Daniel. So basically, every choice that you've had with Daniel is secretly, technically affecting this meter. And even besides the choices of Daniel, you have other choices like who you end up with, either Cassidy, Finn. Finn can end up dead. Literally, actually, Finn could die. I actually found that video really funny. I did a compilation of all the Finn's death. Finn could die basically in just so many gruesome ways and so many mistakes in episode 3. I mean, it's kind of funny, but still. It really just shows like how much your choices matter. Lila could actually end up in your ending and, you know, could still be your friend by the end of it if you just picked up those 2 phone calls of her in episode 1 and 2. There's your grandfather's leg being broken or not in episode 2. You actually receive a lot of letters stating that if he's fine or not in episode 4. And obviously the captain's spirit. That one actually is the most... the choice that really doesn't matter. It actually doesn't even matter if he gets hit or not. He actually just... He's always fine by the end of it. Like in episode 4, you get a card. If he gets hit by the car, then that he's fine, or if he doesn't, he's still fine. So that's one of the choices. Actually, was kind of, I don't know why they thought about making a Captain Spirit episode. Really, none of the choices there really matter. So that one, I'm not gonna give him that one. But everything else, they did a much better job than in Life is Strange 1. It's kind of sad, really, because you could probably make the best Life is Strange game if you just combined the best aspects of the first 2. You just need a more interesting power like Life is Strange 1 and the story of Life is Strange 1 with the decisions and ramifications of Life is Strange 2. You could probably make an amazing game with that. The problem is that Don't Nod is not really making any more Life is Strange games. That completely falls under Deck 9 from now on. The guys that, like I said before, make Before the Storm. Now, like I said, let's give them a chance. Let's see if they actually manage to pull off in their own game with their own unique set of characters and not making any prequel stories for any character. But Donut is officially done with it, and they're making other games such as Tell Me Why or Twin Mirrors. So let's see what comes from this. So, if you're asking me what is technically the best game in the Life is Strange series, I will say, like I said, I am a little bit biased for time travel stories. I still prefer Life is Strange 1 over Life is Strange 2, though having played them both now and knowing the decisions, I find it more enjoyable watching people play Life is Strange 2 than 1. Just because I know that I'll be able to see some surprises, I'll be able to see, which ending they're going to get. It's not really as fun watching people play Life is Strange 1 because, okay, you know how it's going to end. Like, yeah, you'll enjoy the story, but you're not going to have any choice watching a playthrough of that because you already know what everyone's going to get by the end of it. Well, guys, this wraps up this discussion video. If you have any other comments or maybe point out a couple things I missed or some things I didn't take into account in the first 2 games, then please leave it up in the comments section. I'll be happy to discuss it with you. I'm always really active in the comments. I'm always reading your responses and your reactions to my videos, so I will be answering any questions you guys pose from there on. I do have already the next question I want to pull you guys on, and that is, since Donut is not making any more Life is Strange games, and it's apparently falling under the hands of Deck 9, the guys that made Before the Storm, do you have faith in them continuing the Life is Strange series? Like, do you have faith in them making the Life is Strange series from now on? Considering they did make the weakest game of the last 3, but in their defense, they were forced to make a prequel story. So do you have faith in them delivering a unique story in Life is Strange True Colors? So I'm going to post that up pretty soon. I don't know when, maybe a couple hours from now. But I'll be really interested to see how you guys react to that one. Well, anyways, guys, you guys have a good weekend, and take care.